Unit 8 is all about measuring, understanding, and sharing student growth. And the tools that we're going to be using within this lesson are Google Sheets and Google Forms. And it makes sense that we're covering these together because you can use an individual Google Sheet to track data and do what you need to do with that. And you can also create a Google form like we've looked at creating quizzes, and it shows your class summary and those kinds of things. However, these two work together as well, and that's something that we're going to discover within this unit, how to use them individually and how you will transfer your information from a Google form into a Google Sheet. In lesson number 1, we're talking about measure student progress. And when you scroll down, it tells you the importance of tracking that in a grade book and those kinds of things. And here, collecting different types of student data. It does remind us that it's the law in many countries, including the USA, that we protect the student's information. Clicking here will take you to protecting privacy and walk you through and explain what is required of you as a teacher to protect the integrity of our students' grades and their personal information. Going back into the Teacher Center, you will see that there are cards for this lesson as well. And the first thing it walks you through is creating a grade book using Google Sheets. Now, we do have an electronic grade book, the Tyler system that we use, but you can do a whole lot more with Google Sheets when you put those grades in. Now, personally, I do use Google Sheets, but I don't use those to record everyday grades. I use those to record benchmark scores, practice SOL tests, anything that I think is important for me to see how the students are progressing throughout the year. It's in one location. I don't have to go back and look through all the different assignments, and I can create charts and tables and different things like that I can use for my end of the year evaluation, or just to collect data to determine which students I need to work with in small group when review is required. So let's go ahead and look at how to create a Google Sheet. And you do have 3 options for going in and opening the Sheets application. You can go to sheets.google.com. You can go into your Google Drive and click New and choose Google Sheet, or you can go to your Apps Launcher and click on that and choose Sheets. And just like the other applications, when that comes up, you do have different templates that you can use. And one of those templates is a grade book. Now remember, our card in our classroom was talking about creating a grade book. So if you click on that, it will open up your template for you, and it will give you a grade overview and go through. However, we're going to talk about how to create a Google Sheet of your own without a template, because that will be a skill that you will need to be able to do and be familiar with once you're ready to take your exam. So opening that up, we're going to click on blank. And when you do, you have nothing but a blank spreadsheet, and you can make it do anything that you would like to do. So the first thing that we would need is a student name. Now, I always prefer to put my students in by last name, so they will appear by the roster. So when you highlight a cell, all you have to do is start typing, and it's there. And when you click Tab, it will move you back and forth. If you hit Enter, it will move you down to the next line. So tabbing will take you from side to side. Hitting Enter will allow you to go down. Okay, so I always put last and first for last name and first name. And I can say section, because if you teach more than one class, you want to know what section those students are in. And we can say assignment, because we need to know what the assignment was. And we can say grade. Okay. Now, one thing that I really like is it has a toolbar that is very similar to Docs and Slides and the other applications that you can use within Google. I always prefer to keep my information centered. If you highlight the whole form, anything that you pick at the top will apply it to every cell that is within your sheet. And when we're talking about a cell, it is the little square. So when you're looking at it, this would be cell D5. Okay, this would be 5. Here, let's say here would be C10. So it's just like a multiplication chart. That is how the cells are named. But let's go back to this. Once you click on this and the whole sheet is highlighted, any changes you make, let's say you want to center, you have the choice of going left, center, or right, and you click on that, it will apply it to the entire sheet. And then every cell that you type in will be centered. So just for namesake, let's say person 1. Okay, so that's one person, section 5C. So from that point forward, everything that you type will be centered. Let's say we want everything to be on the left. Clicking on that, everything will be left aligned. And clicking here, everything will be right aligned. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and center that. The same is true about your fonts. Just like Docs, it has a list of fonts that you can choose. And you can change the size. You can choose to bold it. You can choose to italicize it. And you can even strike through if you wish. You can change the color of your data and make it all red, whatever you choose to do. And you can also do it one cell at a time. So let's say you want first to be black. You can click on that and it will change that one. Maybe you don't want this bolded. Okay, so if you click here, it will highlight the whole sheet, or you can click on individual cells and make changes. So let's make this all uniform. And I want it all to be red. And choose the color. Now, I can say the assignment, and we've used one and only Ivan. Now, if you type more than the box will hold, all you have to do is drag it, and it will make your column larger. So it will include everything. Now, we're going to give it a grade, and we're going to say 95. Okay? Now, let's say that we're getting started with this and we say, no, I don't like that format. I want to change it. So if you want to delete a row, you highlight it and right click and delete column. Sorry, this is actually a column. A row is side to side. Columns are up and down. So click delete column and that will go away. So you can choose your headings. So keeping, with a grade book, you can do it that way and have the different assignments. However, if you want to see how your class is doing as a whole, this is what I do. I say last name, first name, and I will say this is benchmark 1, benchmark 2, benchmark 3, practice SOL 1, practice SOL 2. Okay, and then at the end of the year, when all the testing is done, I will say SOL 2019. All right, now see how it's bigger. All I have to do is make my column larger, and I will be able to see all the data that is in that box. Now, I'm going to go ahead, pause the video, and make some more student data, and we'll come back and talk about why you want to do this in a Google Sheet. So here is my student data, and I have last name, and I have first name, and I have the section and the grades for their benchmark test. Now, let's say that I want to average these grades, and I want to see how the student did overall on their benchmarks before we start our SOL review. However, I don't have a column here to add that average, so I can highlight this and right click on it, and here I can choose to insert to the right or insert to the left. If I insert to the right, it's going to go to the wrong side. If I insert to the left, it will go where I want it. So it's just a matter of choice of where you put that column. So let's say that I want to average these grades. How did this student do? How are their benchmark scores looking? Instead of pulling out my calculator and doing the math and entering the grade, I can let the sheet do it for me. So you want to do that by going to Insert, Function, and this is where Sheets performs its magic because it can do all the work for you quickly. So if I just want to add them together, I can click on Sum and highlight the grades that I want to add together, hit enter, and it will give me a score. However, we know as teachers we use average. So we're going to insert function, and this time I'm going to click average. And when I do, I choose the grades that I want it to average, hit enter, and it will automatically set up the formula for me, and it knows to add them and divide by 3, and that will give me my average. Once you have created that formula, all you have to do is click and hold your mouse button down and slide it down, and it will copy that formula from the top to the bottom and give you an average grade for each student. Now, we don't want all these decimal places, so if you highlight that, it will say decrease decimal places, and you can click on that, and let's say we don't want any decimals, we just want a whole number. Now, once that's there, I can do that for each one of these cells, or I can select format, and when I do and highlight those, it will automatically change those for me. So now I have allowed Sheets to average my grades for me. Saved a whole lot of time instead of going in and adding and averaging those. So I can see the class as a whole, how they've done. Well, how do I use this to analyze and determine who needs extra help? Well, any student with an 80 or 80 or above, I say, okay, I'm pretty comfortable with that. So that right there lets me know that my student number 4 is probably going to need extra review. Not only after each benchmark, because when you see a 45 and the rest of your class is doing in this range, this student is going to need some one-on-one time. But after their one-on-one time, they came up to a 65. Then they came up to a 70. However, when I average it, I'm still running lower than I'm comfortable with. So this student is going to need extra remediation during this SOL time. Now, you can actually highlight this to make it stand out better. If you go here, you can fill that cell in yellow. So this student, when you have their name there, is the one that you're going to be working with. And this is what I do throughout the year to help me see how my students are doing at a glance. And it's just an easy way to keep track of all of those students. And the second card that is in Lesson 1 of our Unit 8, we have already talked about. And we talked about using the summary of responses within a Google form. Let me go back and show that to you again so we can refresh your memory on that. Remember, you can go into Google Forms 3 different ways. You can use your app launcher, or you can go to forms.google.com, or within your Drive, you can go to New and go to Forms. Now, going into the app launcher, it will bring this window. And remember, we talked about this document. And this was an actual sheet that I had used in my class, and it was Review Skills Test 1. And this allowed me to collect data from one of my classes before we actually began review. You can add the information, and we've already seen how to create one of these Google Forms in a previous lesson. But what we're concerned with now is the responses that I received. And when the information becomes available, this is the chart that we were talking about. It collects the data, it puts it all together so you can see your class at advance. It tells you how many students scored within that range. And remember, usually 80 is my cutoff point, because if they're scoring around an 80, really all they need is the whole group review. But these students that may below an 80 will probably need one-on-one time. So this right here will make me more aware of who I need to work with. Scrolling down, you can go through and you can look. I can't pull up too many different things because I don't want to compromise my students' identities. However, clicking on question will show you how many students got it right. 21 responses got this correct, so they all got that question right. However, this will show you your question, which organizational pattern is used in paragraph 1. 8 students got this right. 9 picked compare and contrast, and 4 picked problem and solution. So this is definitely a whole group skill that my students will do together. Going to the next question. All of them got it right, so, I know they're okay with this skill. All of them got this one right. They're okay with this. Now, here I had 4 students get this question wrong out of 21. So, I can go back and I can look at the question and which best completes the chart. These students may need extra support on nonfiction and how to read charts. So I will make note of that. Now, Google Forms gives us all this valuable information within our summary section and our questions to be able to pinpoint students that may need extra help and the ones that are doing just fine. So, that was another thing that we saw at a glance by using Google Sheets. And the third card that we see in Lesson 1 is protecting data. And clicking on that card, it tells you, you collect this data over an extended period of time, and you don't want anything to happen to it. We want to make sure that it is protected. So when I have this information as I'm going, I like to protect my sheet. And I want to close this out so you can see how to pull it up. But if you go to data and you go protected sheets and range, you can add a range to protect. So let's say I do not want any of these to be deleted unless I want it deleted. So you can set permissions for this and you can restrict who can edit this range. So if you're sharing this document with someone, you can click on custom and enter editors and enter the email addresses of the people that you say can change this sheet and make it custom for you. Or you can just choose to show a warning when editing this range. And the range is automatically added for you. You just click on done and changes have been saved. Not only can you protect ranges, but you can also protect sheets. So if you go down here, you can always rename this sheet by clicking on rename, and I'm going to name this 5C because all of the students that are on this form are in section 5C. If you want another sheet for another class, all you have to do is click on add sheet, rename it, and we're going to name this 5D for my other section. Now, if you would like, you can take this information, your headings, right click, click on copy, and paste. And all that information will appear. You can go over and just make your boxes larger, and it collects the data and keeps the same format as your other sheet. Then you can just go in and add your information as needed. Now, for sake of time, I'm not going to add all the information, but I am going to show you how to protect this entire sheet. So while I'm in 5D, I'm going to go to data and I'm going to say protect sheets and ranges. Add a range. I'm going to select sheet. Now I can toggle and choose to protect 5C or 5D. So I'm going to start by protecting 5C. Set permissions. I want to just show a warning to anyone that's shared. And then I can add. Oh, let's get back to that. Go to data, protected sheets, and go to sheet. And then this time I can use 5D and set permissions, show a warning, and done. And when you look at the bottom, a little lock appears, and that lets you know that you are protecting that entire sheet. So no changes can be made to the sheet. Whenever someone goes in and they go to edit it, they are locked and your permissions are always there. You don't have to worry about anyone doing that accidentally because they will get a warning and they are able to go stop themselves and cancel and not change anything. Now, the last card that we're going to be looking at in Lesson 1 is grading presentations with rubrics and Google Forms. So clicking on this will walk you through the steps of creating a Google form, and I'm going to show you how to do that to grade projects. Now, I have already pulled up a Google form. Remember, you can go to your app launcher and pull it up, or you can go to forms.google.com or from your drive under New and go to Forms. Now, I named this Science Project Grading Rubric, and when I did, it pops up on the top to give the name for the form. And under directions, I said student feedback, plants, and animals. So the first thing you're going to do is you are going to have your students listed. So you can pick the student to add their grade. So when you pick students, you can go and create a drop-down menu. Now, instead of going in and typing in all your students, if you already have a spreadsheet that you have placed all your students in, you can go ahead, highlight the students' names, click copy, and go into your form, click on option 1 and click paste. And when you do, it will automatically populate those student names for you. And that's saving you some more time working between Sheets and Google Forms. Now, the next thing you want to do is you need to create your grading criteria for your rubric, because we're all familiar with what rubrics look like. It gives the skill that the student needs to do, and then you can rate them or give them a grade based on those skills. So what we need to do now is what's called add a section, and this is going to divide the sheet into sections. Once you click that, when an answer is picked here, it will skip to the next section, which is here, because this is section number 1 of 2 and this is section 2 of 2. Now this is where you are going to create your student grading criteria, and we can take this section and name it score, because that is where you're going to score the students on their different tasks. Now, we know that when you score on a rubric, you're usually scoring in a grid, and Google Forms allows you to create that. You have to click on Add a Question, and over here, when you're choosing the responses, you are going to pick a multiple choice grid. And when you do, it is going to give you the options of rows and columns. The rows are where you're going to enter your grading criteria, and the columns are where you're going to enter your point values. So let's say that we want to, let's just make up some stuff. We want to grade on neatness. We want to grade on content. We want to grade on standards. Okay, we'll just leave it at those 3. Okay, now these are the 3 criteria, and let's say we're going to assign a score range that they can either receive 0, hit enter, and 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, and once that enters, I'm going to hit preview so you can see what that's going to look like. So you are going to pick the student, and let's say that this student 4 comes up to give their presentation, and you're going to click next. And when you do, you have the ability to score them on their project. So they're going to present their project to the class, and you can watch as they're doing this. Now, what I really like about this is you're not just stuck behind your computer that's attached to your smartboard or whatever software that you use. You can actually use your mobile phone. You can use a tablet. You can use a Chromebook, and you can sit anywhere in the room and pull this form up because of the document sharing that you have whenever you go into google.com and log in. No matter what device you're using, you can reach this form. So while they're presenting, we can say neatness, they had a 4. They did a great job on that. Content, 3, they left out some things. Did they cover all the standards? Yes, they did. So we are going to, just click on those boxes, and you can click on submit. And once you do, you will have the option to submit another response. And clicking on that, you can quickly go to the next student. So we'll say person number 8 is presenting now. Click next, and we can grade them on their criteria. Okay, and submit. And you just keep doing that over and over until all of your students have presented their projects. Now, once your students have completed their presentations, you can go back into the form and you will see that you have the responses. We only did 3, but once all your students are there, you'll have the number they have completed. Now, this doesn't really give me the information that I need, and this is what I was talking about in the beginning, that forms and sheets are linked together. If you see right here, you can click on this and you can create a new spreadsheet, and it will automatically name it the same name that you gave your Google form, or you can select an existing spreadsheet. Let's say that you want to go to the sheet where we're entering our benchmark scores. You can do that if you want to keep everything by creating another page, but we're going to create another sheet. And clicking on Create will link you straight into the spreadsheet, and it will transfer the information for the student. So you have the timestamp. It'll automatically add that for you, the date and the time that the project was completed or presented, and then it gives you the student name and the scores that you gave that student. So you can go in and create a formula. Once this stops working and it's completely loaded, and you can create a formula by going to Format, Insert, there it is, Function, Sum, and add those numbers together. Hit Enter, and it will give you a total, and you can copy that for each student, and it will show you their overall score. And if you're using a scale, you can come over here, and we can add a column name. We can say total, scaled score, and let's say 12 is a perfect score. So we know this student got an A+, and we know this student, whatever your score is, 8 out of 12, we'll say that's a B, and 11 out of 12, of course, that would be an A. Not a plus, an A. So you have the ability to do that. Clicking on the whole sheet, you still have the options to format that sheet and center everything. You can change the color of the cells, whatever you need to do. But that is how you can take your information from a rubric or a Google form to a Google Sheet. And that is also how you can create a grading rubric using Google Forms. Going back into lesson 1, you can go ahead and read about these scenarios in order to, make sure that you're understanding how you can use it, what other educators said, and they're giving you ideas on how they use Google Forms and Sheets to provide feedback and measure student progress. So when you're finished, do your lesson check, and I will see you in lesson number 2.